Confused about the property market? Can't afford to get in? Can't afford to get out? Well, you're not alone. Surely getting and keeping a roof over our heads shouldn't be this hard. But the housing crisis continues to defy all attempts at a solution. It gets more shambolic and divisive by the day. The haves against the have-nots, rich versus poor, even old against young. Tonight, the Nine Network's finance editor, Ross Greenwood, gets some blunt advice from those who should know the answers. Australia's property billionaires.
They're known as the Now generation, pre-millennials now in their 20s and 30s who lived comfortably in their parents' houses with a fully stocked fridge and free Wi-Fi. But there's one thing this generation with everything can't get: their own home.
So here we've got a project of, we were 78 apartments. We actually had so many combinations to downsize, we actually ended up with 68 apartments. So
Tim Gurner is an exception. As Australia's newest construction mogul, he's selling apartments as fast as he can build them.
I mean, locations like this, we sold this out in 48 hours. We launched another one 100 metres away. We sold out overnight.
Just 35, Tim's amassed a personal fortune worth almost $500 million. He started with nothing, and he's upfront about Australia's housing problem, although his solution is exactly what you'd expect an ambitious property developer to say.
We can't fix affordability by creating further demand. We have to create supply. It's a very simple mathematical equation. If supply is going to exceed demand, we're going to see affordability become more realistic.
Oh, look, it's funny, isn't it? You have a look out there and you've got...
He's one of the big winners in the runaway property market. The latest entrant onto the Aussie Rich List last year delivered luxury apartments worth almost $1 billion to the inner city of Brisbane and Melbourne. They're the type of apartments ordinary first home buyers can't dream of owning. But Tim says expensive city housing isn't anything new, and that his generation needs to stop whinging and start saving.
When I was trying to buy my first home, I wasn't buying smashed avocados for $19 and 4 coffees at $4
So you
each.
reckon that's real, that people actually, young people, actually end up just spending their money and then whinge about the fact they can't get into the property market?
Oh, there's no question it's real. I think until the generation realises that the people that own homes today worked very, very hard for it, saved every dollar, did everything they could to get up the property ladder. It might be that you might have to buy an investment property first. You might have to share with mum and dad. You might have to buy with a friend. But you've got to get your foot in the door and you've got to slowly get up the ladder.
If you don't believe the newest property hotshot on the block, what about the oldest? Harry, will you have a look at this? Unbelievable, hey? Harry Triggerboff is the granddaddy of high-density living. He's officially Australia's richest man. $10 billion rich, thanks to booming house prices. Nobody built in the city when you were building in the city.
No.
So were you mad?
No, I was very clever. But only later I found out how clever I was. I was quite scared while I was doing it.
And from his home, a 78th floor penthouse in Sydney's CBD, it's easy to see the city that Harry built.
You see the one with the orange roof, that's mine. You see this one with the funny shape, that's mine. Here, the ones we're standing in.
The 84-year-old Russian immigrant, nicknamed High-Rise Harry, builds apartments predominantly for wealthy investors. Young people, can they afford these apartments?
No, they don't buy. They can't buy them. They can't afford them.
Is that a problem?
Well, it's a problem for all of us in the long term. In the short term, as long as investors are buying and Chinese are buying, it's okay.
Young people might want prices to tumble, to make housing more affordable. But 2/3 of households own their own home. They don't want to crash. And if house prices fall suddenly, jobs will be lost. The risk of recession will rise. So, be careful what you wish for.
It's never been harder for young and ordinary people to make a start.
Jo Lennon, a lawyer, writer, an Oxford scholar, is the same age as Tim Gurner. But she's far more sympathetic to her own generation's home buying struggles.
There's no point pointing the finger at those people and say, you haven't worked hard enough or you haven't tried hard enough. If you're looking at $1.5 million for a house in an outer Sydney suburb, a pretty ordinary house, then something is seriously wrong with the housing market. The dice are not evenly loaded, they are loaded in favour of investors.
$1,596,000, all done. Sold. Sold.
You're not going to get a house in Camberwell for $700,000.
Make it 1.4. It's got to be 1.4, sir. Happy to make it 1.4.
You're not going to get one in Alexandria in Sydney.
Here's the money at $3 million.
You're not going to get one in Newstead in Brisbane. I mean, the market's changed. You can go to Perth, you can go to Darwin, but you have to start to get realistic about your expectations.
So was a person in 1990 paying those now infamous 17% interest rates better or worse off than a person today? Let's weigh it up. The national average mortgage repayment in 1990 was $1,000 a month. Today, with 4% interest rates, it's $1,900. In 1990, a person used 38% of their pre-tax wages to pay off their home loan. Today, and this might be a shock, it's actually less, 29%. So, where's the housing crisis, you might ask? If interest rates stay low, today's home buyers are well in front, so long as they can raise the deposit. Harry Triguboff has a sixth sense for residential property in Australia. You could argue he has a better sense than the government grappling with this crisis.
Oh, at that stage I was on my way, yes, I was on my way. Yeah, everybody knows there's a problem, but everybody is afraid to do much about it because they think that they might do something wrong.
Harry, a lot of people would expect you to say that the easy answer to the housing supply crisis is to allow you to build more apartments. Is that the answer?
Yeah. If I build more, then the prices will come down. Yes, definitely.
Seems simple. And the Prime Minister gets the idea.
The first thing you've got to do is build more houses, build more dwellings, particularly in Sydney and Melbourne. So
that's music to Harry Triguboff's ears.
Yeah, well, it is, from first home buyers in savers in their 20s to people in their mid-60s who are thinking of downsizing, right across the board, increasing supply, providing help to first home buyers, encouraging people when they choose to downsize to do so, and of course all of that creates more supply.
When Harry Triguboff built his very first development, this very modest apartment block in Merritton Street, Gladesville in the 1960s, interest rates were almost identical to where they are today. Now, for this so-called property bubble to burst, either unemployment has got to skyrocket or interest rates have got to take off. Now, those things might seem unlikely, but they can never be forgotten. But what's causing house prices to stay up is a lack of supply, also ongoing population growth in our cities, and panic buying by local and overseas investors. So how crazy has this got? Well, think about this. A two-bedroom flat in Harry's original block now sells for around $700,000. And it'll get even higher if not enough housing is built for our rising population.
And the beauty of a property like this is it quite often it creates the buyer.
Before you know it, you could be checking out a house on the market for $25 million.
It's true that parts of the market have gone bonkers, but it's not true that the entire market is.
Ken Jacobs sells huge trophy homes. Think James Packer, Kate Blanchett, James Fairfax. But Ken also says if the government gets out of the way of foreign buyers, then prices would be even hotter.
Dramatically hotter, and not just Chinese buyers. We've got buyers from Europe that want to buy here, being motivated by fear of terrorism in Europe.
Jo Lennon says Australians are paying too much for our housing, And we don't have to if we gave less to investors taking advantage of our generous negative gearing tax schemes. This week in the budget, the government fiddled around the edges of some of the negative gearing abuses, but left the scheme largely unchanged.
The truth is, we don't need a crackdown on investor abuses. We need to end a scheme that is itself an abuse. We have to be realistic and say we have extraordinary levels of investor demand. We have to look at why that's the case, whether it's fair, and importantly, I think as well, whether it's worth the hefty price tag that the taxpayer is paying for this.
But Harry Trigueroff disagrees for one important reason.
We shouldn't be afraid of negative gearing, and the people that are in it are usually very little, small people. So that's it. So I'm a great believer in it, yes.
While we see headlines about wealthy politicians and business moguls using our generous negative gearing schemes, about half of those who use negative gearing earn $80,000 a year or under.
I don't think that we should treat housing solely as a commodity. It is not the same as stocks, shares and bonds. People need somewhere to live, and we have to make sure that that supply is there, both for owner-occupiers and for renters.
This may seem like a simple battle between the young and the old, but even some, around the same age, disagree about the values of the now generation.
There is no question we're in a point now where, the expectations of younger people are very, very high. They want to eat out every day, they want to travel to Europe every year. This generation is watching the Kardashians and thinking that's normal, thinking that owning a Bentley is normal, owning a BMW is normal.
The question is, maybe the young generation is whinging.
I disagree. We have to do the math as individuals and as a nation and say, hey, this doesn't make any sense and we can't go on like this. And most Australians would want younger people to be able to aspire to own their own homes. And that's still a widely held value. I don't think that most Australians are willing to let that go.
Hello, I'm Amelia Adams. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for our brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minute segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.